All right. Let's get this show on the road. Happy Sunday night to all of you. Maybe some of you are watching over in other parts of the world, Europe, Asia, Australia. So happy Monday morning to all of you out there. But it's still Sunday over here where I am. So I'm gonna go back to my roots a little bit here with this, and I'm gonna do a driving video. And this is actually going to be a live stream of the pre-recorded video. I wish I could actually do streaming of driving, but I don't have that setup capability quite yet. I have ideas in my head of how I'm going to do that, but I'll get to that in just a bit. But I took some footage with an old GoPro that my roommate lent me, like, I guess months ago, when I was going to the Gap for Miatas at the Gap, and I got a lot of footage there. And those were some of the very first videos that I uploaded. And so I wanted to kind of get back to that, even though I had expanded a lot of my content offerings since then. I'm no longer using just, 2D illustration, but also full 3D model, animated VTuber model. And it's been a little over 6 months since I actually started my YouTube channel. And I wanted to kind of celebrate by getting back to like what the original content was from that. Next month, I think on the 25th will be the 6-month anniversary of my 3D debut, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I've got an hour's worth of driving videos that I did around the area that's near me, I suppose, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas. So, not to dox myself or anything, but hey, it's what's available. So, sit back, enjoy the ride. I'm gonna yap. I'm gonna talk about some things. I've got a agenda item or agenda list of about 5 or 6 things that I want to quip about a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started then. Okay, here we go. And I may have to turn the volume down just a little bit. So let me know if it's too low or too high. You'll notice I have like music playing in the background, but the road noise and the engine is probably gonna be a lot more of the dominant noise here. So I want you to be able to hear over this, but also kind of soak in the environment like you're actually riding shotgun with me as I drive around this area here. This will include both freeway/tollway driving as well as getting in on the surface streets. And if there's some excess noise from the GoPro mount, well, there's a reason for that. Anytime I go over bumps, it makes that. So I'm looking for a new setup probably sometime soon. But as you'll see in probably a few minutes, a lot of the roads in Texas are concrete. And so you get the da-da, 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 and what it does is it shakes the camera. I don't know why they build a lot of roads in Texas as concrete. I can actually probably guess why, but I still think the reasons are kind of more of an excuse than anything. This, as you can see, is nice, freshly paved asphalt. We're currently on the Dallas North Tollway in the northern suburbs heading toward the city, I guess you could call it that. So let me look at my list and see what I had to rant about. So I mentioned, yeah, it's my 6-month anniversary, or kind of, sort of. So that's one of my reasons for doing this. Just to extrapolate a little bit on this, when I started this project and I had the idea of doing like content creation after attending Off-Kai Expo last year, I didn't realize I'd be doing so much right at this point, because it's like, well, how do you get I need to commission a original character, I need to commission somebody to do like the rigging and everything, and I don't know how I'm going to do this, and well, here I am. I had to I had to get the character designed. I had to get I had to learn how to do DaVinci Resolve to edit videos. And then I had to learn how to use OBS when I started actually like streaming and everything. And so I made it a goal when I started streaming to kind of learn one or two new things each time I attempted to do content creation, whether it be a video, whether it be a YouTube short, whether it be whatever. And because of that, I think I've progressed pretty well for not being the most tech savvy person, I would say, although I'm more tech savvy than a lot of people. There are other things that I need to learn to do and other ideas I had in my head. I want to have like some way of doing kind of like third person or maybe like POV perspective as I'm driving in one of my Miatas, like on the road, and then doing video that way. I think I have to get something set up with my phone to do that though. And so I once saw a video, and I forget which like 3D character or VTuber it was. I don't even know if they're really a VTuber, but they had a setup similar to what I'm doing now. And they were riding a motorcycle across like small towns in Japan and giving like advice or commentary about the scene. And their camera was set up like on their motorcycle, like where you could view their you know, their upper body and everything, but the upper body that was showing through the screen on like Twitch or YouTube was their VTuber model. And I kind of had the idea of doing something similar with, you know, Miata drives eventually, hopefully within the next few months, maybe by the end of the year. There are other things, and I've got a lot of like pre-recorded content I've got to work through. I still got about half a dozen shorts worth of like content that I could post on YouTube Shorts or Insta Reels, and I got to sift through all of that as well. And so I would say, you know, look for more stuff soon. I try to do at least one short every week, and so I've got a short coming about I've got short/reels coming about tidbits for doing an oil change on an NA or NB Miata. Oh my god, that's annoying. I'm gonna have to like lower the volume a little bit. And so I've got like tidbits on that. I've got let's see what else is going on. I've got my roommate is actually working on a project with his NB Miata. He's already got it lifted and he's trying to get it into like an off-road configuration. And so that's much better. All it takes is going over a little bump to get rid of that annoying don't come back. Okay. He's working on lifting his NB and making it like off-road capable. And so I've got a little bit of video about that of him like cutting the rear bumper so he can put like another bar in the rear, him cutting the fenders and everything, installing a roll bar, which he did, I think, you know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to cover that just a little bit. I've also got content related, oddly enough, to cooking. I don't know how many people are interested in that, but there's some rather unique dishes that I can actually make. So maybe that'll be like a treat that gets thrown in every now and then. But ultimately, this is about only like 2 or 3 different things. It's about like cars/Miata content. It's about gaming. And the third thing has basically been, besides shorts, I guess, like react videos to other like car content creators. I've dabbed a little bit into guns/firearms simply because I'm interested in that, and I do own some cool shit, but that's not the real focus of this this channel. So but you know, who knows what the next 6 months are going to bring. And so I'm really excited about that, actually. So we'll see where things go. See, now I'm going to go through the next part of my list. I should mention I was doing a lot of, I was running a lot of errands this weekend, and I was pulling out of like one of the mall parking lots in the area. I don't have video of it, obviously, but and It was completely dry. Okay, there's no like wet weather or anything like that, no puddles of water. And I made a really hard right turn, like mashing on the gas coming out of this shopping mall to like get up to, you know, do 0 to 60 in 5.9 like the Miata is capable of doing, or at least the ND2 Miata is. And I almost lost control. Like I saw the traction control light blip a little bit, and but I regained control. Thankfully, I didn't crash into anybody or anything like that. But it's a little bit scary, but a little bit fun at the same time. So, and it was on completely dry pavement, and I think it's most likely to happen on pavement if it's asphalt that is like really dense and really old, so it doesn't have the kind of, I guess, grooving that newer laid asphalt has. So if you like drive on asphalt roads, and you know how they're very sun faded after about like 8, 10, 12 years, that's the kind of road I was on. I was pulling onto a frontage road, and so trying to get up to freeway speeds. So that was a little bit of fun. Speaking of which, I did mention the whole thing about concrete versus asphalt. And so this is a little bit of a rant that I want to do. And let me see. Yeah, you're right about that, Hazy. You're absolutely right. I'm going to get into that a little bit. Concrete tends to be used more in areas where the soil tends to be a little bit unstable. And so in much of East Texas, especially in the big cities, the soil is kind of unstable. There's no bedrock beneath the surface. And so there's a lot of subsidence in the area, especially, you know, with the way drainage works and whenever we get like a lot of rain at once. And so it affects the roads. It also affects a lot of the buildings here. There's certain parts of like the DFW area where almost all the houses have foundational issues. And so you have to like modify or redo your foundation, and that can be an expensive job. I've personally known 2 people who've had to have it done. We're switching up the video here. I know you're tired of like the Dallas North Tollway, so we're about to hop on George Bush. I don't mean the president. I mean the road that's named after him, and it's the old man George Bush 41, who passed away I think a few years ago. But when you're in the DFW area and you mention George Bush, people automatically assume, oh, you mean the tollway or the turnpike, not the president. So here we are, hopping on to our next destination, which is wherever. And I think this is the perfect segue to get into like concrete versus asphalt, which I had already gotten into just a little bit. So concrete is more stable where soil conditions are poor, I believe. Another fact is that concrete typically only has to be completely replaced every 30 years. And with the technology they have right now, almost every concrete road that's been built since the 2000s is going to have a 60-year life cycle as opposed to 30. I first learned that when I was in like, you know, grad school for transportation planning. And so a lot of the concrete roads that you see are really designed to last 60 years. Here's the problem with concrete versus asphalt. Yeah, asphalt has to be repaved every 10 years or so. But except for those last 2 years where it starts becoming obvious that it needs to be repaved, it is smooth as silk. It is especially comfy to drive on. The problem with concrete is that even though it's very stable, you do get like the bumps every now and then. It's not quite as smooth a ride even when it's new, but it lasts tolerably smooth with no potholes for a really long time. You only have to do patchwork every now and then, maybe every 10, 15 years, only in certain spots. So you probably get, depending on materials costs, more money for the investment, and it's better in areas where, like I said, the soil is unstable and or the amount of heavy vehicles on the road, like trucks, they're like this big tanker that you see up here on my right, are disproportionate number of vehicles that are on a particular stretch of road, which isn't the case here on George Bush, but on a lot of the DFW area freeways, it is the case. And so that's why it is. What's unusual about the big cities in Texas, at least in Houston and the DFW area, well, not so much in Austin and San Antonio, because that's central Texas, which is kind of part of hill country, and the soil is more stable there. But in Dallas and Houston, one thing you'll notice when we get off the road here in a couple of minutes and we take our exit is that a lot of the surface streets, the arterial roadways, are also made of concrete. They're not made of asphalt. And so you get this type of road surface even in areas where it's supposed to be relatively quiet. There are not as many heavy vehicles. You're even going through residential neighborhoods. And that's something that I thought was unusual. Like, I've lived in the Midwest, I've lived in the Southeast, where everything except a few high traffic highways and arterials is going to be asphalt. But in the two biggest metro areas in Texas, concrete pretty much dominates. Another thing I want to point out is you're probably seeing some sun glare on my windshield. And this is one of the reasons I haven't been doing that many driving videos recently. Number one, I was out of content until a few days ago, that being the raw footage. Two, it's very, very difficult to actually, how should we say? It's very difficult to film this type of stuff in the winter. And the reason it's difficult is the sun's angle against in the sky, and you get glare like this during the winter. The sun's angle, even during the middle of the day, is to where, unless you're filming yourself driving north, you're going to get glare like this on the windshield, and it's very difficult to deal with. And I'm not like a professional photographer or videographer or anything like that, but yeah, that's why I always hesitate to do that. And there are fewer hours in the day where you can actually film with good lighting, because there's fewer daylight hours and whatnot. Really, you can only film between about, I'd say, 10 or 11 a.m. and maybe 3 in the afternoon. I mean, 4 hours may seem like it's enough, but when you've got a schedule to go by and you're dealing with other stuff throughout the day, it's very difficult. In the summer, it's very easy to film because, sunrise is like at 6:30 in the morning, and the sun doesn't set in June until like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night here. We are on the western side of the time zone that we're in, so that's why the sun sets late. But that also means, because the sun is directly overhead, it's much easier to get content during the daytime. My current GoPro setup is not ideal for filming at night. It's a little bit too grainy because it's older technology. I want to say this camera that I'm using is from like 2016 or 2017, but I'm probably going to switch over when I get a new camera set up, if I do this a lot more often, to maybe like some kind of Insta360 or whatever any of y'all could recommend. So I'm open to suggestions so I can do more content like this. Oh, so what we're on now, since I want to point this out if this is very unusual. In Texas, most of the freeways and interstates have what we call frontage roads, which is what I'm driving on right now. You have the main lanes, which are totally limited access, controlled access. The frontage roads are basically where the intersections are with local streets, and they even have access directly to normal neighborhood residential streets, more frequently like businesses. And so you basically, if you want to get on or off a freeway in Texas, you have to use an exit ramp, and then you'll get on this frontage road that you see here. And Texas is really, I think, the only state that widely uses this setup, where this is the rule, not the exception. If you're driving through rural Texas, by the way, this setup can be a little bit risky and dangerous, because In the urban areas, the frontage roads tend to be one way. They go with whatever flow that the main lanes are. But in rural Texas, because exits and crossovers, I guess, over the interstate or whatever highway are so relatively far apart, the frontage roads are actually two lanes, or rather are two-way roads. So imagine like this one-way road we're on is actually two ways. You're getting on and off. You actually have to cross traffic that is going in the other direction to enter or exit the freeway. And you have the right of way, but it is kind of risky. There's a lot of people get injured or even killed, unfortunately, in like head-on collisions in Texas because of that. But they haven't really updated that design for rural Texas since they started building the interstates decades ago. Just a little tidbit. Let's see what else is on my list. Another thing I wanted to point out that's kind of unique to Texas and maybe only a few other states, but this is the only notable like sizable large state like this. In most states in the United States, traffic signals, the signals themselves are oriented vertically. You have red on top, yellow in the middle, green on the bottom. Well, as you can see here in most of Texas, it's we like to do ours horizontally for some reason, where red is on the left and green is on the right. And this is the exception rather than the rule, not only in the US, but in most of the world. The only countries I can think of that set up traffic signals this way, where the signal heads are horizontal, are Japan and South Korea. And I think maybe Taiwan, but don't quote me on that. But I think the reason Texas does it this way, but it's not necessarily to be different or anything like that. If you look at the flags across the street, it is really windy here. And so orienting the signals horizontal on those mast arms that you see there allow for less wind load and allows everything to be a little bit more aerodynamic. And I think that's the main reason for it. There are parts of Texas, like cities here and there, where the lights are oriented vertically, but that's the exception, not the rule. I think in Florida too, like if you're within 20 miles of the coast, those traffic signals are going to be like Texas's. They're going to be horizontal instead of vertical. But if you go inland, it's vertical, I think. But don't quote me on that. I haven't been to Florida in decades. That dude on the right almost hit me, by the way. Like, I was afraid he was going to, like, come in and not see me when this, we encountered this road construction here. I'm definitely going to have to get a new camera setup because this noise from, like, the encasement that the GoPro is in is really, really fucking annoying. Sorry about that. But and so, I mean, you're getting a good representative example of what most of urban/suburban Texas looks like. It's like tract housing, strip malls, major intersections every mile or so, like you see here. And the cars driving, of course, are mostly going to be bigger than my little Miata. Crossovers, SUVs, pickup trucks. But all in all, you know, it's kind of, it can be interesting. You just got to go to different places. One thing that a lot of people will tell me about, like, the area if they go to the Dallas-Fort Worth area is that one part of it looks exactly like the other. Or any other. Doesn't matter which suburb you're in. We happen to be in Plano right now, but if you go to like Garland, Grapevine, Irving, Arlington, Denton, I mean, you name it, like, and even the two big cities, Fort Worth and Dallas, it all kind of looks the same. You have all these neighborhoods here. But here's something that's very unique about the DFW area compared to other areas of Texas and even in a lot of the United States. The suburban areas that you see here, I'm not going to go into like any neighborhood streets or anything. They have alleyways. And what do I mean by that? The garages are in the back of the house, and they're accessible from a small one-lane alley, which were common in urban cities, like when people were still like riding public transit to work, taking trains before car ownership became really, the norm in America. And so you see alleys in like Chicago and some of the cities in the Northeast, but Dallas is like the only city I'm aware of where even suburban areas like this, they've kept the alley system. In most of the United States, the garage and the driveways go out to the main street, but in Dallas, the main street's just reserved for the sidewalks and the front doors. And you can park on those streets if you want. So what it does is it's actually a great place for car enthusiasts, because if you own like, I don't know, 8 or 10 vehicles, there's not really a shortage of where you can park them. You can park them like in front of your house on the street, as long as you're not like blocking a fire hydrant or a mailbox. And then you can park them in your garage and your driveway, which is like, accessible by the alley. So coming up on another intersection here. Let's see what else is on my rant list. I've been on a 90s I've been on a 90s music kick recently, admittedly. Been buying a lot more physical media recently in the form of music CDs. If you follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, I have this thing that I regularly do, like 90s, here's your 90s song of the day or 90s song of the week, and I've been posting a lot of 90s songs that, I remember listening to growing up. And so I've been purchasing a lot of those albums as well. The other day, I managed to, one of the local used record places or music places here. Sorry, I'm beginning to lose my voice. I need a little drink. One of the music places here had Cracked Rear View by Hootie and the Blowfish, which is like I think it's the highest selling rock album from the 1990s. He had it for $4.99. And like, I know when you went to like CD Warehouse or some used CD place back in the early 2000s, you'd find it for $8-9. But now it's really interesting where physical media has gone. It kind of disappeared in the 2010s, but now it's making a resurgence because people want to own their shit, I guess. They want to own their own data. They want to own their own music. And whatever. So I bought that. I bought a couple other albums as well. I bought Three Doors Down's Greatest Hits. Not because Brad Arnold just passed away, but I really like the band. And I was listening to their music. Ooh, NB. Did you see that black NB that just drove by? Okay, now we're going to go on another road here. I'm going to up the volume just a little bit. Hopefully there won't be that much rattling. But yeah, as I was saying, I was listening to some of their music even before like it was announced that he had passed away. So yeah, I've been buying a lot more stuff from that era in the past few months, especially in recent weeks. I like listening to it, when I have when I need to pass the time and I'm not at my computer or anything like that. Okay, onward with the list. Oh, so I wanted to talk about, speaking of going back in time, not really to the 90s, but the 2000s. Did you hear that? I'm sure some of you may have caught the news that CyberConnect 2, who got their start because of the .hack franchise in the early 2000s, is working on a new .hack project. I don't know what it is. I don't think anybody is quite sure what they know what it is. If it's like a new story or a prequel or kind of like a redo of the original .hack, a remake, that would be really cool. But I was huge into .hack back in the 2000s. I had all 4 of the original PS2 games. I played them all the way through. Elk was my favorite character, by the way. Yeah, I like the blue ones. And then, I'd seen Dot Hack sign the anime, Legend of Twilight's bracelet, and then Dot Hack GU was announced. I was super excited about that. I played all three of those games, and I watched the prequel anime to that, Dot Hack Roots. And after GU, Dot Hack kind of died off a little bit. There were like 2 or 3 small projects after that, but I didn't really make anything of it. I liked them because they were Dot Hack, but I'm super excited about a possible new project or a remake that may be in the works. So as a matter of fact, to segue into like streaming ideas, I think I've been gaming and I've been playing mostly Uma Musume anytime I've streamed and made content related to streaming. I'm thinking about having my first like game that I stream that's not Uma Musume like be the Dot Hack GU trilogy, because it's available on Steam and I should be able to like easily stream that. Unfortunately, I actually really like the original games, the original like 4-volume set from, I think it was launched in like it was released in 2002 2003, but that's not available on Steam. There are other ways to get it besides buying an old PS2 and buying those games, but it's neither here nor there. But here's the thing: you go to a used like retro video game store or whatever. If you can find those games, they're super expensive. Like the first one, Infection, I think I once saw that at one of the local used video game stores for like $150-$200. And then even the other volumes were like close to 100. So it's inexplicable to me. I mean, but then, back in the 2000s and 2010s, people were paying wild prices for like, physical copies of games like Secret of Mana or Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VI, which on the SNES here in the United States was called FF3. But don't get me into a rant about like Final Fantasy naming conventions before 7 in individual markets. So, but yeah, I'm super excited about Dot Hack, and I may actually like go ahead. I may actually just play Trilogy, the GU trilogy on Steam, and I start streaming that. I think I get most of you to watch, and then I would get a lot more people to get interested into Dot Hack and the franchise. Because not to shit on SAO, but SAO wouldn't exist without Dot Hack. Dot Hack did it first. The whole concept of like being trapped in a game. Yep. All right, back to my list. I swear I had one more thing I wanted to talk about, and I still have about 29 minutes of video content left, and I kind of want to go through all of this. But yeah, so let's see. Let's check what's going on elsewhere. Oh, I just wanted to say congratulations to the Winter Olympics is going on. So congratulations to everybody who is participating and everybody who has won a medal. Especially though, I wanted to shout out and say congratulations to the U.S. women's and men's hockey teams. Both won gold this year, I think for the first time ever. So yay, USA, go, go, go. What else? Let's see. Oh, and so I wanted to speak a little bit about my schedule for creating content. Okay. So I know there are a lot of content creators out there, VTubers, what have you, that operate on a set schedule where they're going to be like, I'm going to stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And that's fine if you can stick to a routine. I think it helps. But me, with the amount of content ideas I have and the variety of different types of content, especially with my YouTube shorts being relatively popular compared to the rest of my content, I don't like following a set schedule for when I'm going to stream, when I'm going to post a video, or when I'm going to do a short or a reel or anything like that. Really, a lot of these things are ideas that pop into my head kind of spontaneously because of maybe like something I read or some kind of outside influence. And then I'd be sure to kind of jot them down on a notepad, and then I'll go through that. And usually I'll act on that idea maybe like a week or two later and start, making video, finding websites, figuring out how I'm going to do like a guide of some sort, like whether it be a buyer's guide, a market guide. That's kind of how I did my buyer's guide for each Miata generation. So content creation, it's either, especially if you're a regular gamer or streamer, I guess, it's much easier to stay on a set schedule. But if you're doing a variety of content, it's always going to be, it's very hard to have a set schedule. I'm just going to say that right here. So I try and put out 2 to 3 different types of content each week, whether it be a stream, whether it be a short/reel, whether it be something that is pre-recorded. I think I've averaged about 2 per week since I started doing this creation back in August, because if you notice on my YouTube account, I think I have, if I want to look at it real quick, I'm not going to pull it up, but I have 45 videos. That includes shorts, live streams, and pre-made videos. And so I would say, if I've been around for 26 weeks, yeah, that's roughly 2 videos per week, roughly, whether it be videos, shorts, live streams. So I'm going to try and see if I can up it to 3 in the next few months, but I'm going to warn y'all, I'm going to be pretty busy during the months of March and April because twofold. Number one, I got to do my taxes. And I've got most of what I need to get it done. It's probably only going to take like a few hours on one weekend afternoon. Probably I'll try and get it done next week. I don't know. But that's one thing that's going to occupy my time. The bigger thing I have to deal with, though, is I'm probably going to be moving soon. Not out of the area, but to a bigger house. Because me and my roommates, we actually have a lot of hobbies because we're all nerds to some extent. And, at least 2 of us are kind of like, we're car guys. So we need more space. And right now we're looking at a few places, and all of them are bigger than what we have now. A couple of them are like 1.5 times the space that we have now. And so that will give us a lot more flexibility on what we can do. But moving, even if you're like going from one house to another and you're renting rather than buying, is still a complicated process. You got to negotiate a contract. You need to negotiate the lease. You need to get all your utilities transferred and everything. And then you need to coordinate everything, because really you're paying rent to 2 places at once, because it's always going to take you like a few weeks to actually like settle in and move everything. So I'm most likely 3 to 1 odds I'm going to be moving in the next in the next few weeks or in the next couple of months. Not leaving the area or anything, not moving far away, but just to some place that's bigger. And so in that time frame, if I'm out for like a week or two, I understand that it's because I got super busy with something as big as like, you know, a move, right? Let's just say that. Another thing I wanted to rant about was like, I'm one of those people when it comes to like manga or light novels or anything like that. And maybe it's like the older millennial in me. I kind of like finding things physically in a store. Yeah, I order online as much as just about everybody else, but there's always a satisfaction of being able to find that book you were looking for, or that video game you were looking for, or whatever. If it's physical media, in one of several stores that you may hit up. And I'm actually looking for the first manga volume in English, not light novel, but the first manga volume in English of Gun Gale Online. And I can't find it anywhere. I've been able to find 2, 3, and 4. I've read all those, but I can't find volume 1. I can order it online all day. They have it in warehouses or whatever, but seeing it on a bookshelf at a store, I still haven't been able to find it where I live, even though I've checked about 4 or 5 places. Maybe I need to check about like 4 or 5 more and like broaden my search. But that's one thing I'm looking for. I collect some Japanese manga as well because I took 2 years of Japanese in college and I can read it pretty reasonably to where I can understand what's going on. I have, for instance, I think it's 26 volumes of Ika Musume or Squid Girl, which is one of my favorite manga series. And it's never going to get translated in English because the puns are almost impossible to translate. But I also have most of the current volumes of Watamode that are out. But I'm missing a few. Like I'm missing volume 18. I have 17, 19, 20, and I think 21. And then I'm missing every volume after 21. And none of the Kinokuniya stores here in DFW, both of them, and they're about to open up a third one in Fort Worth, by the way, nor the ones in like Austin and Houston have them. I went out to the Kinokuniyas in LA when I was there in November, and even the book off stores out there, seeing if I could find it used, nobody had volume 18. And so I'm thinking about just biting the bullet and ordering it online off eBay or someplace or Amazon, those missing volumes, because I can be a little bit of a completist, I guess, when it comes to like collecting manga or anime or whatever. If I'm missing one volume, it's always gonna irk me, you know. So oh, time to pour myself a drink. Enjoy my engine noise for a little bit. Okay, so where was I? Okay, I just poured myself a drink. I hate all this construction work they do randomly on the weekends too. They have like 1 or 2 lanes blocked off so they can like redo or patch up like certain squares of concrete. It can be annoying. Oh, so here's another thing I wanted to rant about. It's not on my list, but I have a lot of driving footage, I guess. I just got my so I have Costco membership, and I have that whatever level it is, executive level membership, where you get that big refund every year if you shop a lot. And so I've been a Costco member for a couple of years. Last year I think I got like $50 or $60 worth of refunds, the refund check that they give you like toward the end of like every year that you've you've built up points or you've spent money there. This year, let me grab the little letter / check. I have, well, me and my roommate are on the account, so let's see if I can, barely $14 on this check. So we haven't really been taking advantage of going to Costco frequently in our second year of membership. I think we've gone maybe like 5 or 6 times total. Whereas the first year we went at least a dozen times and we were spending like $300 each time. But who knows? Maybe maybe this upcoming year we'll actually like do a lot more Costco shopping, because I when I lived in Georgia before I moved here, I did the math on Costco membership, and really it's a ripoff unless you're like, shopping at Costco is not worth it unless you're trying to shop for a household of at least 4 people, which, no, we have 4 people in our household, so that's part of the reason we got membership. I do admit though, every once in a while I get a craving for the Costco hot dog and the slice of pepperoni pizza. I'm not as big a fan of the chicken bake though, but yeah, I always try and get the pizza and the hot dog when I'm there. Costco also has really good meat. I will say though, here in Texas, the best place to get meat, especially for where your money will go far, is H-E-B. Like, their meat prices, especially for like pork, is probably like a third to 50% cheaper than almost anywhere else, comparably speaking, whether it be Costco or Kroger or any of these other like supermarkets that you could go to. Oh, by the way, if you're in the DFW area, and if you've heard of like Hoshi Japanese Cafe, which I think what's his name, Steve's POV, he owns, that we just passed by it. It's on the left. But anyway, back to Costco and meat prices. So H-E-B is actually the best place to go if you want quality meat at a relatively low, like I'm talking pre-COVID prices from everywhere else. So and their stores are huge. Like, they've got whole sections for like everything imaginable: Asian food, Mexican food, barbecue. I mean, it's such a treat that they're finally building them here in DFW, or they have been for the past 3 or 4 years. So I try to go whenever I can. I don't like going during the weekends though, because they are super crowded. I think the best time to go is maybe like on a weekday when you're off, like maybe 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Then it's not too bad as far as like it being crowded or anything. So another thing I wanted to comment on, this driving video is a little bit different from some of the others that I've done, where I think really I only did something similar when I was in my hometown and it was at night. I'm actually driving on your regular everyday surface roads. And I mean, like, not the freeways, not the toge, not the mountain twisties or anything, but just run-of-the-mill average suburban streets in a really large metropolitan area. And so if this seems rather boring, well, so be it. But some people like going through like urban landscapes like this. They'll spend hours on Google Street View or whatever, and they'll like click that arrow to go forward and forward and forward, and they see, this is what such and such place looks like. I'll admit I do that too for other countries. Like I like dropping a random like pin on Google Maps and say, I wonder what this place looks like. It turns out to be, oh, this is what rural France looks like. This is what rural Japan looks like. This is what, this is what, oh, this part of Paris looks like this. This part of Italy looks like that, Even other parts of the United States, like I do that too. It's like, oh, I'm interested. What do suburbs of Seattle look like? And it's always interesting to note like the different architectural styles of houses depending on what part of the country you live in. So I just like seeing that. Also, one thing I will like to do, and I will admit to doing this, is I will try and find Mazda dealerships in a particular area on Google Maps and see if the Miatas for sale are visible on Street View. And then if you go back to like different dates on each of those Mazda dealers, like I could go back to like 2013, 2014, and I see like NCs as they were sold new instead of NDs, and I think that's pretty funny. All right, how many minutes do I have left on this video? I got about 10 minutes left, so I don't know what else I feel like ranting about though, so I may end it before then, as ending the video. There are a couple new like Miata React videos that I have in the works, and I'll probably do that stream sometime this week. I'm probably going to aim for Tuesday on that one. One is about whether or not today's market's good for buying a used ND1. That means a 2016 to 2018 ND Miata. I'm going to say the answer is yes, although I haven't watched that video yet. But you'll see me stream a react to that video probably on Tuesday. And then there are a couple other new ones that are out, so look for that very soon. And other than that, I don't think I have anything else really to go on about. Let me double check my list to make sure I didn't skip something. Oh, by the way, remember what I was talking about with sun glare? You're seeing it here. Because it's like, when I filmed this, I think it was like 4 in the afternoon. I've ranted about people who back into parking spaces, I think. I don't think I need a rant about that again, but just to remind you in case you missed that part of whatever stream it was on. Ever since rear view backup cameras were mandated in cars here in the US, I've noticed more people just use them to back into parking spaces. Really, that defeats the whole purpose of them, because them being a safety feature is for you to back out of parking spaces into whatever parking aisle you're in. Backup cameras have a wide angle lens, so you're going to be able to see things around like blind corners. That means cars that are parked next to you that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see just relying on your rear view mirrors. Unfortunately, when you pull into a parking space, or rather when you back into a parking space and you're using that camera to make sure you don't hit the 2 cars next to you, when you pull out of that parking space, you've recreated the situation that you were in before backup cameras became a thing. That means blind spots to your left and your right. With your hood in the way and you being about maybe 8 to 10 feet behind where traffic is driving back and forth, you're not gonna be able to see cars as they pull into and out of the parking lot or go up and down the aisles. And I've seen people get in wrecks and fender benders that way within parking lots. So that's just That's my little quip about backing into parking spaces. So let me cross that out. Another little tidbit, a little safety tidbit I'll give you. If you're driving a Miata or really any small car, especially if you live in the United States like me, where most cars are going to be like big trucks or vans or crossovers, SUVs, you are driving a small car, and because of that, when you're around those vehicles, as you can see with me passing that van and then this truck on my right, your visibility is a little bit more limited as far as like what's in front of, what's behind, what's to the side of those vehicles. And so you got to give yourself a little bit of extra wiggle room. So when you're in a Miata, it's not wise to tailgate behind the car in front of you, because it's a lot harder for you to see the car and the cars that are in front of the vehicle that you're driving behind than it would otherwise be, all other things being equal, if you're driving like a pickup truck or an SUV. And so you have to give yourself that extra space, that extra tolerance, in case, you know, you have to make some kind of defensive driving maneuver. And so that's a little bit of a safety tidbit I want to give. It's a content idea that I have not got video for yet, but I plan to whenever I get a chance. And then I'll probably do a YouTube short or Insta reel on that on that particular thing. So with that, I think this is probably a good place to end it, especially with, you know, the sun glare being so bad, and I kind of have a feeling that the noise from the camera enclosure is going to become annoying again. So I'm going to go ahead and pause things here, I guess, and return to the previous scene. And so I just want to say once again, thank you for joining me tonight. Thanks for sticking with me and my YouTube videos for 6 months. And here's to the next 6 months. It's gonna be a great year. Let's just say that. Let's just hope that. But it requires me to up my game a little bit, and it's something I try to do every single time I'm making stuff for y'all. And it's not just for you, but it's also for me. It's to kind of like level up my game as well. And I think the most important thing is, I don't really care that much about follower count. I know that 60 something people subscribe to me. If we could get to 100, that would be great. I think that'd be a call for a celebration. But more importantly, I think the most important thing, if you're going to be in this hobby industry, whatever you want to call it, this community, is that you have fun, you make friends, and most importantly, you just get that great feeling that you did something out of it. And so for that, I just want to say thanks to y'all, and here's to much more down the road. See y'all later, and have a great week.